Oh, hello to people watching. I felt I had to go live because I have so many ideas that I've accumulated over the holiday season, which isn't completely over because there's the next leg of it is tomorrow, New Year's Eve, and I know Millennium Whinge is not quite over. And I haven't listened to all of them, but I mean, obviously, they don't really want to talk about solutions, and I'm obviously infuriated that nobody's interested in solutions, and this means a whole range of neurosis and psychopathy that I wish to address, and it's as if I'm talking to automatons. It's almost as if the moment I say certain words, that they're just going to say what they've always said 100,000 times to me and other people, and they just go, if only we had a time machine to go back to the time when Britain was white and we believed that we could trust in our government, and when Britain was great, oh, make Britain great again. No, but we haven't got a time machine, and on it goes. So obviously, maybe I was a bit mean. Anyway, I was removed from a space, and this is well, it's a matter of interpretation whether it's a good thing or not, right? They removed me because they knew what I was going to say, so they already knew what I was going to say, right? And that's a good thing, and they're not interested in hearing solutions because, you see, if people come to me with a problem or something, I would like to solve it for them, and I know that sometimes, particularly when you're talking to women, they don't really want a solution because the solution is so obvious, but they don't want to do it. I mean, particularly if it's like really obvious things like, oh, my boyfriend and my relationship problems, and it's sort of like, well, you've chosen a bit of a dud, and you're angry and disappointed with him, and it's already so early on in the relationship, and and it's in trouble already. It can only get worse, and but they don't want to do the obvious thing, which is to cut their losses, and so they whinge and whinge and whinge until one day you sort of lose patience and say, well, if you want to whinge about him, you have to the relationship is going nowhere and you have to dump him, but they don't want to, and this is really the cause of the neurosis. They know what they have to do, they don't want to do it, they're only pretending not to understand what I'm saying, which is really what I find so infuriating. Hello.
Yo, what's up, Claire? What's up? Are we live already? What's up?
Yes, we are. I've been whittering on to myself.
What have you been wittering about tonight?
Well, complaining about Ren whittering on at me.
Who is Ren?
Ren Cobb on Spaces. You know
Never heard
her.
of her. Is it something to do with Robert Cobb?
No, they're not related. Well, Robert Cobb is an Australian, and Ren Cobb is. I was going to. Well, she's a sociologist, and she's talking to Stephen Broughton now. And
okay,
I think you know the one. I mean, she's kind of a very well-spoken lady, who's. But anyway, it's like I talk to certain people, and there's a sort of button that I seem to press when I go on to certain subjects, and then they suddenly feel the urge to tell me things that they've told me 1,000 times before, and say, oh, if only Britain were white again, and things like that. And I guess I tend to lose my rag at them and say, I have a solution. Please just listen to it. Just listen to it, and ask me difficult questions. Please just play this game with me. Why don't you? and they won't, and they just have to go back to if only. But congratulations on a series of successful streams. You obviously enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, I've done quite well, haven't I? I've done quite well. Surprisingly.
Well, a lot of
guess.
people do want to. Well, I think, it's a format, isn't it? People can sort of suddenly blurt out things, right? And you think, oh, that's really interesting. And then, in Luke 4, Luke, goes on about it. And then Doooovid has to say something about it. And then Elliot has to say something about it. And
Oh yes, look, the fact that I got Luke to kind of have like this crisis on the stream, not intended by the way, but the fact that he did that generated extra content because I could then talk to Doooovid about Luke, and then talk to Brindlefly about Luke, and it creates more content, doesn't it? This is actually the old YouTube format where somebody would say so, somebody would make a video, and then like you would make a video in response to them, and then they would make a video back in response to you, and then someone else would chime in and make a video in response to the person who's made a video about the person who's made a video, and it would like create this chain, and people would share audiences like this, and it used to go on all the time, and it's kind of died now. People don't
why
want
do
to
you
have.
think?
I don't know. I think people don't want to have argument. They're not prepared to stand by what they say, or they're not interested in. I don't know. They're not interested in being challenged, or they're afraid, or
Yeah, I think that must be it. I mean, and that's what I find so frustrating. It's like, well, if you really feel it, then say it. Stick your neck out and take a few risks, because otherwise, people will think you're grifting or just taking a position that you don't really believe just
yeah,
to
that's
get
right.
attention.
That's right. Because grifters do this. I mean, I'm not saying that anyone in particular is a grifter, but it is a sign of a grifter, one who will never allow themselves to be somewhere where they're challenged by something that they're not expecting. For instance, I say academic agent. Anytime he's gone into a debate, he's lost it. He's a terrible debater, and so he makes sure that he ends up nowhere where anybody can ask him an awkward question anymore.
Right. Who did he debate with that he lost to? Because I never watched his stuff for long enough.
Joel Davis, famously.
Okay. What were they arguing about?
The argument was, do we need a positive vision, and Joel Davis was yes. I mean, I think Joel
How can
Davis
we
is
not need positive
yes.
vision?
Well. Here we go. Academic agent's position was no, a negative vision is enough. Just to say, I don't like that. We don't like this. Just critique that. That's enough.
I think certain people are just promoted in order to be an obstruction, to be a wet blanket, in order to gatekeep. And I think they may be specially chosen for their personality defects.
Yeah, the problem is we can rarely ever prove this. But, so, I mean, we can speculate. I'm not unopposed to speculating. Other people say you're a bad person if you dare speculate who you think is paid off. I mean, the most common explanation, like the Occam's razor, is that these people are like lone grifters who learn to play the game. They learn what works. Academic agent learns that he just puts out his bullshit, and his bullshit smells the sweetest when nobody is going around saying that stinks like shit. So, if there's nobody there to point out that it actually stinks like shit, then he's able to sell it and just keep putting on this facade. So it's the old salesman technique, isn't it?
Well, I think that there is a group of people who go online who are graduates, middle class graduates who, are in full-time jobs, and they can't, be seen to be in earnest about anything. So everything has this, air of plausible deniability. I didn't mean it. I was only joking. Can't you tell I was being satirical? And they all flock together to talk nonsense to each other. And I just, heard a whole earful of that today. And
Yeah.
so the middle class educated people just take positions, and that's what they do.
I do fucking hate people who say nothing. Speak, and I do fucking hate people who speak and words come out of their mouth and they say lots and lots of stuff.
Very, very slowly in a very annoying drawl. And so I mimicked this Christian Frenchman thing. And, well, as I told you, Stephen Broughton said, we're all friends here. It's at the end of the year. Now, be nice, Claire, be nice. And I just couldn't stop it. I just...
Oh, well, if it's someone's second language, I could maybe understand that. I'm more speaking of these people who just talk nonsense. I mean, like you said it, I don't think it of Jord, but like you think it of Jord, don't you? Somebody who's just speaking nonsense. Words are coming out of their mouth, and they're saying lots and lots of things, but it's like you're getting nothing from this. It's like no extra information is being generated, no matter how many things you keep saying. We're getting nowhere.
Yeah, you can imagine George, sort of this bright-eyed bunny jumping around, being, good-looking and young, and I'm so sexy, and I know so many things, and I can talk so quickly, and I'm so charismatic,
Wait. This is your opinion of Jord, not mine.
Yes,
I like
yes,
Jord. I think Jord is very intelligent. He has a lot to say. I could talk to Jord all day, because I do think he's one of the few who is grounded. He still has a grounding... Even when he's talking like this...
Even when he's talking nonsense.
Spirituality and, I don't know, astrology and all this kind of stuff. But some of the people are not grounded at all. Some of the people talk and it's just endless nonsense and just bullshit. And I'm like, I'm learning nothing. I'm getting nothing. No matter how many times you keep speaking... No new information is being generated.
Well, it's kind of like Jen Sharp. I mean, she's a study in herself. There's many, many comical moments. It's all like, there's hardly anybody in the chat because she's just banned literally everyone. And the only people come are people who hate watch her. And then her just really comically complicated diagrams that she's...
I used to think she was doing what we call a bit, playing a role. I thought nobody could be doing this legitimately, and then somewhere like 6 months into it, I realised no, she's actually like just a schizotypical stoner girl or something.
It just makes me laugh even thinking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, the hate watchers were the most comic, really, because some of them really, really did hate her.
Oh yes, yeah. And Doooovid lasted, what was it, 2 years or 3 years streaming with her?
Well, the thing, it was just this perfect codependency thing, right? Because I mean, she was just so anti-Semitic. She blamed Jews for Christianity and Islam. That's how how extreme her anti. And Doooovid was quite happy to take it because it's like, yeah, and I'm streaming with a shiksa, and she's it's sort of like it just worked perfectly for the two of them, really. And Doooovid would be so rude to her, and she would take it because Doooovid was a Jew, and well, she'd do her thing to Doooovid, and he'd have to take it from her.
But they streamed for like 5 hours, where Jen would be just like talking her bullshit and going through her blog or I can't even remember how the show's progressed. But
She would write a
basically,
blog and make people read from it. And we would read it. What does this all mean? She wrote, "You're stupid. It's wasted on you. I've cast pearls before
and then
swine."
and then after something like 2 years of doing this for 5 hours a week, Doooovid began to start to snap, didn't he? And he's like, "It's nonsense. None of it makes any sense. Nobody knows what you're on about, Jen. It's all meaningless. It doesn't make any sense." And he even told her that her stupid balls, her stupid periodic table, even his chemistry teacher had one on her desk when he was in fucking high school.
But the thing was, he was going to this conference in Sardinia, and he wanted her to come, and he was going to pay for her fare, and she was angry with him. She was
Yes,
angry
she
for
didn't want to
inviting
go.
him. Yeah, and then it's like, "Do you realise there will be people who you can't afford my security. You can't afford,
Oh
and
my
there will
god.
be people who will want to hurt me, and you can't, and that's why I'm not coming."
Yes. I mean, and of course that was an excuse. That is just like that is the type of excuse that a mentally ill person will come up with that they think sounds plausible, but just sounds utterly insane when you think about it. Like, Jen is not a celebrity. Nobody knows her. She used to get like 10 live viewers at the most. And so, yeah, that's just crazy. I guess what that is when like a guy has just the guy has misread the relationship, and you think, oh, he might actually be interested in more than I thought, and so the girl is like, I need to come up with some excuse here to get out of this situation.
Well, I'm sure he wasn't thinking of, sharing a room with her, because
Yeah, but maybe
she
she
is a
didn't
man.
know that. She's like, all of a sudden, oh, I don't know what this guy actually intends. He wants to meet up. This was like my online online talking.
Well, it would have been fun to see them, producing content together and whatever, and I think, Jen, she's a big tall girl. She can, she could fend off Doovid if he were, if he had dishonorable intentions towards her, so.
Or there's a multitude of other explanations as to why she couldn't do it. Maybe she's like a drug addict and therefore can't travel out of the country because you can't take your drugs with you if you leave the country. So I often think, what do these drug addicts do? How do they, they basically are trapped in their countries unless they get off the drugs. Maybe that's an explanation. Maybe she just realizes, maybe she's one of these people who literally can't hang out with other people, like, like an, what is it, like an agoraphobe or something.
Yeah, and I remember thinking, "Oh, hi, Doovid. I've never been to Sardinia." He wasn't interested at all.
I'll take her place.
But you're not interested in consciousness. I could take an interest in it if it needs be, but no, I didn't. I don't want to go anymore anyway. Oh.
By the way, what another waste of time! All this time spent looking into consciousness. Ugh. I mean,
Well, I mean, the thing is, he's just advertising his atheism, because, you never get religious people thinking, what is consciousness and where does it begin? And, it's always, pretentious philosophical atheists who always go on about that. So, yeah, and
yeah.
it makes me think that I know you scorn the whole idea of this God narrative, but once you say, "Well, I know somebody who knows everything and created everything," it just becomes a lot easier to explain the world to to children, and maybe even to yourself. And it is the narrative that stirs up people's emotions and motivates them to do things.
Yeah, but it fucking annoys me. I mean, like, I don't know, maybe. Yeah, I once considered it would be fun just to like adopt a position. Like when I first like considered starting to make videos, I think I pondered around in my head slightly, briefly, the idea it would be fun to just like adopt a position and just LARP as like a position, and you just defend it no matter what. A bit like I used to suspect you were doing until then I came to realize, no, you're actually serious. I did, legitimately wonder, is Claire just like LARPing? Is it like, I found this like cute little paradox where I can get people tied up in knots about what they want versus how they're going to get it, and pitch them like this weird angle, and nobody is going to argue against me, and I'll get everybody tied up in knots, and I'll just like LARP from this angle. I often wonder if like the Orthodox bros do this, or that like Jay Dyer does this, or and then down into like the other even weirder categories of people. I know people who are like flat earthers, I suspect do this, because I struggle to believe that anybody truly believes that the earth is flat. So I think they are LARP. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I once considered LARPing as a God believer.
Well, you can always change your mind, because then it seems to indicate character development, or, well, that's how you could sell it. So, and then people will, oh, Stephen's decided to believe in God or whatever. Maybe I don't change enough. Maybe if I changed a bit more, people would be interested in my, mental movement.
Hey, what I told you once, what you should do is you should have a Damascene conversion. You should have a come to Jesus moment. It doesn't have to be permanent. Okay, you have a Damascene conversion. Decide that Christianity is the way. Suck all the Catholics in, and then like 6 months later you can revert back and start pitching them.
Oh, no. Well, nobody would ever take me seriously again. No.
Well, exactly. You can't do that, and therefore I can't do it either. At the end of the day, I know some people get a kick out of doing this LARPing online, but at the end of the day, I'd find it way too much trouble, way too difficult. So I just have to be honest, and say I just don't believe.
Well, the thing is, you don't have to. You just have to be prepared to be able to entertain two conflicting ideas. It's like, well, if God exists, then all this stuff happened to me and my society and my world because he's angry or pleased or whatever. But if God doesn't exist, then it is all for historical, psychological, economic, political reasons, and whatever. So they're just two ways of looking at a certain event, two ways of interpreting it. And I think that's actually quite useful. But as regards how I have become after all these years of going on about what I go on about, I find myself even more convinced of the correctitude of what I propose, which I suppose a lot of people find extraordinary.
You're no close to believing, though.
No, I don't think it's even necessary to believe, because the arguments, even from the standpoint of an agnostic, is already compelling. And I think what I was so frustrated about talking to those morons in that space was that through a series of Socratic questions, I could actually get them, if they were being honest, to agree to come along with secular Quranism. And that's why they just ran away and did this. Oh, if only we had a time machine to go back to the golden age of Britain, of yeomanry and whiteness and Viking raids and whatever.
You know, do you remember I once told you how you could pitch it to people and convince them more easily? I once said I shouldn't tell you this, but it doesn't matter anyway, because I know you won't adopt it, but it would be a tactic for you, is the way that you pitch it to ethnats, right? Because it's so repulsive, is the idea of embracing Islam, okay, to us. It's so repulsive. I can tell you, we'd rather die. Okay, so the way that you have to take that on board. Okay, you think,
I do.
I've been trying it 10 years. No, not a single person will embrace it willingly. So then change your pitch. Your pitch could be: Islam is coming if you do nothing. You are going to get full Islam. The only chance you have is to adopt it yourself and
control the interpretation. Yes, that's what I've been trying to tell them.
Yes, but you
don't. Never get that far.
But you don't actually make that pitch. You don't tell them that, look, in 20 or 30 years, your country is going to become an Islamic state, and that will look like Pakistan, or that will look like, or whatever, pick one, and you will become second-class citizens in it. Your only opportunity is to create an Islam light while you have the chance, and then you will be the interpreters of it yourself. And some idiots might fall for that.
No, that's what I've been trying to say.
Yeah, but you don't pitch it. You don't pitch it like that. You try to tell them that it'll be better for them and everything.
Well, yes, because I say, the judiciary will be because. But anyway, they don't get it, and the thing is, I think a lot of it is they just don't want to be seen to be discussing it, and that's why they just pretend not to get it. They don't ask the obvious next question, because they just don't want to be even to be seen to be discussing it.
Your pitch is that they should want it because it's better for them, and it will lead to better things and all this.
Higher white birth rate.
And all this. And
but the thing is, I don't think they even want to marry and have children. I mean, that I think is really the problem. They don't want to. They would rather die than marry another member of the white race and have children with them. I think that is the problem, and that is why, for all these millennia, people were forced to do it. It's like, no, you can't be thinking that you might be gay or transgender, and you might like to try something else, and we're going to force you and shame you, and if you don't, we'll keep nagging you and asking what's wrong with you. Are you gay? Why can't you find yourself a husband or wife? Blah, 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 blah. All these sort of games like Old Maid and whatever. Oh, did you watch any of that stuff? I was talking to Judas last night, and he was complaining about inceldom, and he said we were watching this video of Jews complaining about how mean people were to them for being incels and bachelors, which I thought was quite touching, really, because people were being so mean.
Yeah, I mean, look, I like Judas as a character. We let him into the cube, and I let him hang around and stuff. But the thing about Judas as an Orthodox Jew is his culture is so alien to us. It's difficult to understand it. And so
he said something really interesting yesterday. He said, Jews are white people LARPing as Muslims. I better go back on it, but I thought I wish I'd asked him, but anyway, I got distracted. So yesterday he said he got himself a copy of the Quran. He was recommending this website to ask all these questions and and stuff. So he's
Mm.
um I think he's actually quite bright, it, because
Sure,
I mean it's just that
sure.
he can't follow the
He's
logic.
he's probably got, he's probably does have Asperger's, or which is autism, but also comes from a very. You have to understand, Judas literally comes from, or is enmeshed within a very insular culture, some kind of Hasidic Judaism, right? Some
Well,
kind of
actually,
Orthodox
no, because
Judaism.
he lives in LA. His father is a non-practicing Muslim,
I know,
and
but
most of his
he is,
relations are Reform.
yeah, but he is enmeshed within it somehow. Clearly, either it's
I
by
think he
his.
just enjoys studying it, and I can't see the pleasure of it. I mean, I enjoy studying it, so suddenly you know all these rules, and then you follow the logic of the rules, and everybody thinks you're crazy, you know, and I think a lot of neurosis is people sort of. Do you remember that there was this documentary about Enoch Powell, and they were kind of laughing at him for being driven crazy by the logic of his beliefs. Do you remember that? It's quite an old one,
No.
you can find it on. It's not a very long documentary, and his wife is there, and it's quite touching, really, and there
No,
were
I
these
don't know
people
that.
laughing at him because he was driven mad by the logic of his beliefs. Oh well.
Yeah. What I'm trying to say
But
about
is that
Judas.
Asperger's? I mean, is that really? I don't think it is. It's like, okay, if you believe in God, you
No.
have to take the whole thing seriously, right? You have to.
Yes.
And so what I think most Western men are driven mad by is the yes or no. Everything is yes or no. It's like yes, but
Yeah.
no, but you're not allowed to say, and then there's this cloud of words to say why it's yes and no that nobody really understands, but they pretend to because they want to be able to say yes and no at the same time. And Conops has arrived. You didn't interview him.
No, he never showed up.
Yeah, but you
Bad
see,
Conops.
I'm reminded.
Disappointing. He let me down. He never
Yeah.
got in touch. Never. I'll never forgive him. But it's okay because S.J. James was very successful, and it was actually more successful than I could have imagined. I'm actually very, I have to maintain my level of aloofness about it all because that is like the whole gimmick anyway. Millennial Woes is very serious, and Millennial is this very serious thing where he takes himself very seriously. But I'm also, on the quietly, just over here on your channel, I can express I was quite proud of the fact that an ADHD spurg like me was able to, I don't know, just like demonstrate such a volume of productivity within a short window. And look, what I can do if I just put my mind to something and I can just produce something. So I'm quite pleased with what I did. He said, Conop says he's sorry, so I'll accept his forgiveness this year, but not next.
Yes, I wanted to mention this yes and no thing, but with particular reference to Conops, who
Yeah,
I remember. You see, he supported Trump in 2020, and then Trump didn't
yeah,
win, and he knew he couldn't. He had his liberal friends to square it with, and it's the same with Jay because he regards his
yeah.
success as his association with all these middle class people. So he had to reconcile the fact that Trump didn't win with there being fraud, and so they arrived at this. There was fraud, but not enough to swing the election. So and then they were happy. So they could have it, both ways. To have supported Trump and to accept that he didn't win, even though there was fraud. And so a lot
Well,
of
well,
all these.
look. in their fairness to them, like for instance, Luke Ford takes an even stronger position against fraud. He says there was no fraud. So you have to understand the dilemma comes in that, like, despite months of attempts, of efforts, like that election basically got dragged on right until, basically the inauguration for months, and despite millions of pounds and lawyers and everybody trying to expose this fraud, they basically could come up with no actual evidence of any fraud.
That would be considered by any court. The courts point blank refused to even look at it.
Okay, fair enough. So.
But anyway, we will believe what we want to believe, because
Yes,
fundamentally
we will.
that's how we all kind of work. Like, how could you believe such a thing? You must be an evil person or whatever. But
Yes.
with Luke, the thing is, I don't even know why Luke bothers to take his convoluted positions, because nobody trusts anything he says anyway.
Well,
Nobody.
Actually, I think they do. That what they
I think
are
they're just happy to discuss these topics, and in a way, it doesn't matter what Luke thinks, as long as they can, play in the chat and occasionally appear to discuss this or that and be asked questions. I don't think Luke's beliefs even matter at the end of the day.
What is funny about Luke today is that he likes talking about all this stuff, fundamentally deep down. And let's pretend I'm talking about somebody who's not Luke. Let's pretend I'm talking about somebody called Dave, but we all know who I'm talking about. The problem with Dave is that he's a racist, and he doesn't like dealing with minorities. He sees all the problems with it. He wants there to be like a much more right-wing thing. He'd like to kick all the immigrants out, and have things to be like like he experiences it when he wanders around in white Australia and things like this, and and so that's what his heart's desire would be, but is enmeshed within this community of probably like liberal Jews in Los Angeles, and has this life now where he's like, people will exclude me because even if they agree, they'll be like, you're the outspoken guy who could like make us look bad, so we're like distancing ourselves from you. And so he realizes that that's a worry for him. And so now, because he still likes talking about all these things, then he goes over, he goes to excess to give the contrarian position and to give every side and to walk on the fence, to the extent where he ends up saying nothing at all.
Yeah, he was just worn out at the end of his interview with you, because he was having to be the lawyer, right?
Yes.
Talking like a lawyer or a politician.
Yes, that exactly.
That was what wore him out.
Yeah. And really, that was like my Asperger's too, I guess. I'm a bit Aspergy. We all are a bit. I should have recognised it. But I also wanted to push him a little on it. I mean, it wasn't hard questions.
Yeah, they weren't hard at all if he wanted to answer them honestly.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, this whole martyrdom thing. It didn't come from Christianity or Islam. Actually, it's the Jews. They're the ones supposed to martyr themselves. If you go through to their, under these circumstances, you are required to martyr yourself and sacrifice your life to make a point against, adultery. Okay, I know they don't take it seriously, but they have special terms for these things, and basically. I don't think Luke even knows this is what is really expected. I don't think most of them do know.
Oh, here's the thing, right? I had Luke on my show. I'm interviewing Luke. In my mind, I'm like self-aware of the fact that I've got an audience of people now who are watching because I'm doing this thing. I picked up like something like 75 new subscribers who are just watching for this like series of interviews I'm doing. They're all new viewers, and I get Luke on, who's like not a Jew, and I'm like getting to an hour into this interview, and I realise I've not like addressed the elephant in the room, which is that he's Jewish, and he's interested in the distant right. And like that's the obvious question that you've got to address, isn't it? I know we've done it all before on Luke's channel for like fuck and to death, but it's like the obvious question. Luke, you're a Jew. Tell me about Jews in the alt-right. Why are they interested in it? You know, this is like but otherwise the interview would have ended. I mean, what do I do? Just get Luke on in a yarmulke to just like never address this question? It's like his own identity. It would. I couldn't have not asked him about Jews.
Well, I'm glad you have some kind of journalistic integrity and some awareness of what is expected from you, from your subscribers.
That's what I thought, anyway.
Yeah, because they think, well, then you didn't ask him that question. But I don't think. I think Luke converted to Judaism because he thought, as a Jew, he would be allowed to say all these things, and then it turns out that he can't. Right? I think that was why he converted to Judaism.
I don't know if that's true. He converted before. I mean, it was way before this stuff came about. Doing what we're doing was basically live streaming wasn't a thing until like 2015.
Well, I think it's something to do with, being traumatized by his father's, position on Seventh-day Adventism, because, Luke's father suffered for taking the wrong position. And there was a time when I thought, I have to find out what this theological position, what his position was and what it should have been. And it's like, it's so complicated and I can't even remember it now. And I think, maybe Luke was sort of angry, like, well, where did it get you, Dad? All this Christian theology thing, when actually, if you're a Jew, it's actually quite easy to understand and explain, and nobody's going to question you, and whatever. And I think for Christians it must be quite demoralizing, because every time you're made to explain it, you'll find that you can't, and you well, I think it's very difficult to explain.
No, I mean Luke's motivations. I suspect he was motivated by being in LA, noticing who the successful people were that they had, and that, as he always talks about, a tight-knit community. Noticing who was running Hollywood. I mean, he will have noticed whether it was obvious to him at the time or he just like imbibed it, and he wanted to get into this circle. And so this will have been what attracted him to it. And, I want to be in the cool, what will have been like the cool club team or the elite club. And so he will have gone into it that way. Yes, let me just, sorry, did you want to say something? Then I just want to talk about what Conops is talking about. Conops is talking about Martinez.
Oh, right.
My guest Martinez perspective. So I guess over here with nobody watching, we can have, oh shit, you've got 9 viewers, but whatever. Mm-hmm. Martinez is an interesting character. I do think it was one of the better episodes.
I don't like him. I really don't like him.
People have that about him. You won't like him because he is antagonistic to your positions.
Yeah, it's not just that, but there's just something really.
There's something about
him. Do you even have a girlfriend? And I remember he I think sometime back when he was trying to get some attention, and he was I thought he was pretty low, but anyway.
Okay, well I understand that. It's what's interesting about him. Is that he did used to be a Wignat, basically, and somewhere around 2021 or 2022. And we had a little conversation about it before the show, actually, that he says basically it's like a cult. This World War II revisionism stuff, it's like a cult. You fall for the 4chan memes. You fall like for the greatest story never told. It's like a cool club, the Daily Stormer, all this bullshit, all this stuff, and you never fact check it. And then one day when you do start looking into it, you realise that it's built on as many lies as the shit that you like were railing against in the past. And so when you try to leave the cult, then all the Wignats hate you, they try to ruin you. And this is what happened to him about like 2021 or 2022, from my understanding, is that he began fact-checking, changed his mind on a lot of things, extricated himself from the cult, and began to see these people as problematic, extremely toxic to any kind of nationalist sentiment. And so now, yeah, he does one of the much more interesting, nuanced live streams that I've seen of people. You know, I've watched probably half a dozen of his live streams over the last few months, and they're always nuanced. I learned something from them, so he's an interesting guy. That's why I wanted to get him on.
Okay, so that's his background, that he used to be a
Yes.
Wignat and
Yes.
was pro-Russia, and then he became neocon.
No, he was basically a Wignat who, like, believe, you know, of Hitler did nothing wrong type guy, of like a 4chan memer, a Natsok. And then you look into the Second World War and you realise that, you know, it's not like that you're told as being a Wignat, you know, Germany was an expansionist power. You know, there was. Oh, he did kill 2 million Slavs and deport, you know, Poles to work camps. And, you know, it's not just, he's not the saviour of the white race like, I know these idiots are telling you. And so you just, you know, if you're a person who cares about the truth, you just can't conscience that anymore. You're like, at first you're like, whoa, I discovered that World War II was a lie. And then you're like, well, actually, no, it's not, actually. That is the lie.
Well, I think, you know, if you don't like Jews, you know, Hitler is a god of anti-Semitism, right? You know, there's nobody
Basically,
else.
yes. Basically, yeah.
And because of the, you know, aesthetics of Nazi imagery, it's just sort of easy to get hold of and use and, you know, mimic him because, yeah, you know. So I think that it's as simple as that, really. Have you heard of Grayson Brock?
I don't think so, no.
Oh, he's a Mai Tai person with a YouTube channel, which Mike Malzahn has mentioned.
I said, Claire, on Grayson Brock, he was just live with 200 watching.
Yes.
Grayson Brock, never heard of him.
Oh, I might have a look at his stuff. Yeah, and it's also kind of your thing, isn't it? Your Mai Tai thing. Sounds like a cocktail, to be honest.
I've never heard of him. Oh, interesting.
Have you been watching any millennials?
Not many of them.
I watched.
I've got notes on them, but we will do a roundup of it, like whatever, Friday or this weekend at some point, yeah.
Yeah.
Because everybody's yearning for a bit more still. So we'll do that.
Yeah. I mean, it should be. Well, I don't know. I think people still want to talk about it, even though it's.
So I used my notepad on my phone. I've got some notes about Rusty McRusty, Anti-Dem, Millennial Woes' public mod team, Alexander Adams, News Fist, Ferryman's Toll, Isaac Young, UK Column. They're fucking old bastards. Whining about conspiracy crap.
They're so depressing. I can't bear to watch them. And you know, it's like you watch them and you think, that's why on TV you have to have young and attractive presenters, or you're just going to hate on these people and shoot the messenger.
Yeah. The Woodlander, Red Ice.
What is he about? He's so like, we're going to go and live in a log cabin. Is that his shtick, basically? Oh my God.
Well, I mean, by the way, he reached out to me and said, I think you've got what I'm doing wrong. We should have a chat. So I said, so I replied, sure, let me know. And he never got back to me. So, I mean, whatever. It's up to him. But yeah, basically go and live like Frodo in the woods. It's his solution, I think.
Well, I don't know.
Red Ice TV, Ed Dutton, Distributist, JF
Distributist is such a smooth, nothing person. Because he never says anything interesting.
I think we are winning the war against the left. I'd be most interested in winning the war against the left on Twitter.
I guess I quite like Josh Firm, I think it's named.
He's the philosophy PhD at Lotus Eaters.
Yes. He's not bad looking. I've been, pestering him a bit. But, he was the one who said, we're going to make them go home and make them go home and make them pay for their fare home and then send them home and send them home some more. So it's like, but at least it's it's an idea. So, I must. Anyway, he hasn't blocked me yet.
Interesting.
JF was quite fun. Did you listen to JF?
I think I did, but the only note I have down is that at 8 minutes, Millennial Woes again said, remigration.
He's still saying remigration.
Yes, he's not got the meaning.
He's being a bit tone deaf about it. Yeah. I mean, nobody else says remigration. Do they?
No, they don't. It's really weird.
Odd.
It's really strange. So, Arvol.
Oh, he's going to go on, is he?
No, Arvol's been on. Okay. It was actually interesting. It was actually about doing something. Arvol's been building, basically, I know, some Wignat community in the middle of nowhere in the Ozarks. They bought some land, 150 acres of land, and they're living on it. And there's like 20 families or I don't know, or maybe it's like, I don't know, maybe it's some kind of like, what was that one, Ruby Ridge or something like that commune?
Right.
I don't know if it's something like that. I don't know if, maybe Arvol is like David Koresh. He does give me those vibes a bit.
Yes. Oh dear.
Yeah, that's the vibe I was getting. He's talking about, he's bought this 150 acres of land and families are coming to live on this land, and it's basically a white-only community. And they're digging wells and building houses and things, so And whether or not he's having sex with everybody else's wife or not, I didn't get that much information, but it's possible.
Do they have Wi-Fi?
Wife fun, maybe. Yes. Next year, get JF on. Ask him about Mama JF. Well, I think
He didn't really refer to it much. He just said, "Oh, they tried to, pin them." But it's like, well, where is she now? Has she been found? Do you know?
No, she has not. He now talks about the fact that he does think she's dead.
Oh. Well, that's a bit awkward. But what about his baby? Who's looking after the baby?
Puffwagon says most of the O's. He is, by the way. There won't be babies anymore. They'll be little children. They'll be like 4 or 5 years old. Those kids, and I think there's 2 of them. But he's also got a new wife, a new girlfriend now, JF. And they've fled. They fled Prince Edward Island where they were living because the police were basically. I think what's happened is the police are basically saying JF is a weirdo. Is he? He has a weird history with women, and so that what they were basically trying to imply is that he is like holding this woman against her will, maybe like psychologically, not physically, but like psychologically, he's corrupted her or something, and implying maybe he has some hold over her, and so that he realized he needed to flee to another province in Canada, where they weren't going to treat him in this non-judicial manner, and he's found
Coercive
somewhere.
control, I think
Yes,
it's called
yeah,
now.
yes, that type of thing.
But I think, he was being quite patient with her. I mean, it would just drive me mad if I was just talking to you and, some mad sex partner of mine started coming in and asking questions and hitting me. I don't think he or she would survive for very long. And she might well be under the patio.
Is there anybody that we need to know about under your patio, Claire?
I don't have a patio.
Notice she didn't answer the question. Have you had any renovation work done in the last 10 years, Claire?
No, I'm not Rosemary West.
No.
But I suppose, yes. I don't know. How would you get rid of a body? Well, you've heard of Dennis Nielsen, haven't you? And how he did it in his bedsit.
No.
Well, he basically, he was gay and he invited gay men and he didn't want them to go, so he killed them and kind of played with their bodies after they were dead, and then he put them in cupboards and whatever, and then eventually he'd have to get rid of them, and he would dismember them in his bath, like I forget which famous murderer it was, and then what he'd do would be to put their guts and things in a carrier bag, and then he dumped the bits into hedges and things. That was anyway. I read a book about it, and
Wow.
and then and then I think one day he got careless and he blocked the drains in his bedsit, and
The drains with their brains.
yeah, something like that.
Holy cow.
Oh yes, and later, years and years later, he was asked, "Do you have any regrets?" And apparently he said, "Well, all those men I murdered, nobody missed them. Nobody asked after them. Nobody cared where they went. So what's the big deal?" That's what he said.
That's the sign of a psychopath right there, isn't it?
Oh, and Doooovid says quite often that he thinks Luke is a bit of a psychopath.
Luke is a sociopath by his own admissions, I think.
What do you think that means? Somebody
That
without principles?
somebody who has a history of putting themselves first, being cruel and unusual to people to get their own way, use and abuse people. I think Luke's talked extensively about that this has been a characteristic of his past. You know, it's been a long learning process for Luke to get to where he treats people the right way, and whether or not he still does, you know, in his personal life, we don't know. But he has done a lot of reflecting upon this being like a negative part of his character in the past, probably due to, you know, some level of autism, because one of the things he says about himself is that he cannot read other people's feelings. So if he sees this as like something that like women are amazingly gifted at doing, like women can, like, you know, tell if you're feeling, you know, if you're frustrated, you're angry, you're sad, and like to him people are like a blank slate, so he's no idea. So like and this is the problem with women, is that women will like say, you know, they'll like come to you and say, oh, it's okay if we don't go on that date. And so Luke will be like, oh, okay, great. When really what they meant was, you better take me out now. You get me? There's all these like plays that people do in relationships.
Yes, and they mean the opposite. Like,
yes.
Yes.
Well, if you're autistic, you take people literally, or you, at the very least, you don't notice when they're not being literal, when they mean the opposite.
Well, if you stay in a relationship long enough, you learn, you know, where the boundaries are. But you know, if the relationship ends before you really get to know each other, I guess you'll never learn.
Yeah. Another telling thing about Luke is that he used to speak of one of his girlfriends. He one day yelled at her aggressively, and she didn't do anything about it. And so he says he began to yell at her more and more and more, and more and more and more, to the point where he was like always being yelling and being angry with her, you know, at her. And that was because she never corrected this behaviour of his. And I think that's a very telling sign with Luke.
Well, sometimes we all need to be, you know, shown the boundaries to ourselves. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, Luke comes across as, well, you know, not very emotional, you know, and I think, but he said, well, you know, he led a very disturbed childhood. He was in a care home, and people were mean to him, and he had to, you know how to survive. And I guess, you know, what he wants is really a sense of belonging, I guess, to a community if he doesn't have his own family.
I suspect that behind the mask of Luke Ford is an extremely tragic individual with a very dark, a very dark side to his personality, that although he does talk about it and opens up about it, probably truly has kept off camera wisely, and so you can never truly do it justice. And that this stems from, you know, a very traumatic upbringing as a child. Like, one of the aspects of Luke that people don't ever think about is that his mother died in childbirth. So he lost his mother as a result of Luke being born. So, and then from my memory, I'm just like clutching at memories here. I think he's spoken about that there was some level of resentment towards him as a child. by either by his father or someone else, or whatever, perhaps by his father, that maybe like that he was to blame. You know, that she
Yeah, I
wanted
knew
that
somebody like that. Yeah,
yeah,
they do
she'd
feel a
still be
sense
here,
of guilt.
and so he was put into foster care as a young child, so he never knew his mother, and then was like bounced around foster carers for whatever reason. So this is an extremely traumatic childhood. This is going to, I mean, your theories on single parents are that it has a deep and lasting effect upon the adult that you become. Isn't that right?
Well, yes, or even something happening, in your childhood will, probably last, if it's, not
Yeah.
resolved. But I wasn't necessarily thinking so much of that, because I know that, that there are times when Luke, I think when he's feeling low, he'll talk about, his time as a porn director and of all these women who, wanted to marry him and whom he rejected, and in a way it's a kind of boasting thing, like there was this woman and she was so in love with me and I just couldn't, and there was this other one and this other one, but even in the telling of these stories, you might think, oh, perhaps I should have married her, that one or that one, and I didn't, and blah, blah. Um, um, and that's why I think, having too many sex partners also damages us, you know, even though at the time we didn't think it did. Because I think fundamentally, I think a little bit of us dies when we have meaningless sex with people, and and also I'm also thinking of a woman I knew, and she wanted to have children, but she was stuck in a relationship, and the man said, well, it's either me or the baby, and if you choose a baby, I'm going to dump you, and she chose not, so she had the abortion, which I can imagine would be, quite traumatic, would become even more traumatic as the years
And then
pass.
did they split up anyway?
I actually haven't stayed in touch with her.
I bet it happened anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I mean, the many, many tragedies in many, many people's lives, and you never know if they ever come to terms with it or not.
Yeah. Control Conop says Luke's life is a tragic tale of missed opportunities. It's I mean, it's definitely there's definitely attachment issues. I think this is where it all stems from. If you're in foster care, you had her father who's essentially a nut as well. I mean, let's just be honest. If he's like some kind of religious icon or whatever, some kind of religious theologian or whatever in some weird Christian sect, that's going to do a number on you as well, because you're. So look, he had a weird upbringing. There'll be various attachment issues, and then when he becomes a young adult, he ends up basically in probably the worst place possible, actually, in the middle of LA, in the 80s, at the height of like porn and sex. And he becomes basically, I guess, a playboy or a player, and just immerses himself in vice and degeneracy for God knows how many years, and then I know gets sucked into another weird cult, Judaism.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good-looking guy, so I guess, a lot of women would have thrown themselves at him. Once he played a cassette tape of himself, sounding very Australian and very earnest and very Christian. That was, I thought, quite interesting, and now he sounds, well, totally different.
Yeah.
But there was
I
a
mean,
kind of,
go on.
No, no, you can't. I was just saying he just sounds like a totally different person. The earnestness and the energy was there that obviously has is no longer there. But anyway, and his voice has totally changed.
Yeah, I mean, look, the kinds of Christianity that are like these, I know, these extreme versions, flavors of Christianity, these more excessive ones. They're okay if you're rich already and you have things in life. So they're okay, like for the son of a pastor in Texas who already has like a mega church or something, and like he inherits this, and like it's a perfect role for him. And you can imagine it's like such a great upbringing for him, and he like becomes the next like pastor in line, and it's just all automatic. But for somebody like Luke, his dad's preaching like basically from my understanding, like it's like kind of like a version of Christianity that's very renunciating, like renunciate your worldly goods and all this kind of shit. And it's a very feminine version of Christianity, but just basically like selfless love and all this kind of shit. I do imagine that can be. Well, there's nothing there for you. There's no path to prosperity, at least within it.
Yes, and Desmond Ford didn't do well out of his career
No.
as a theologian,
No, in
and
fact,
that
he was
must have
persecuted
rankled.
for it.
Yeah, because he took the wrong side, and the thing is, if it had happened to me, it would drive me mad that I can't even remember why Dad went wrong or what the argument was about and why everybody got so excited and hated
Yeah.
everybody else on the other side,
Yeah.
and if you can't even explain that in a way that makes sense, yeah, you'll think, oh, well, what's the point of it? But it's kind of like the
Yeah.
history of Christianity in a way, because when you think of how people fought each other, for being the wrong kind of Christian, and now nobody cares. It's sort of like, well, what the hell was that about?
But the whole message, which is like the way to the ideal way forward, is to basically have nothing, to give it all away, to just be this goodness, give unto others, do the right thing, be kind, give away your worldly goods. It's harder for a rich man to enter heaven than it is for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle. All this shit. You can understand how, for somebody who has nothing basically already, really, that is not an attractive way forward. Versus, especially to somebody like Luke who went to university in LA. So he will have been drawn away by the idea of, developing a successful life for himself in some other vein other than that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, well, he was a country boy, and he was put into the big bad city, and I guess some of the temptations were too much.
Yes,
But
and fell victim to the vices of LA at the time, which were many and plentiful, and But anyway, look. I mean, the biggest regret Luke has of his life, it seems today, is that he never found a wife to have children with.
Oh, but a lot of men actually find that horrifying, and that's why they won't do it, and that's why they have to be madly in love with some bird before they, because if you think about it coldly, it's like, do you
Oh
want
yeah.
to stay with this woman for the rest of your life and pay for the kids? And it's like, well, maybe I'll do something else instead. And
But also, it's quite embarrassing as an Orthodox Jew to be a single male, isn't it? So there's that as well. Like, it's expected of him. I mean, we don't know how much like Luke is just treated like a bit of a weirdo. I mean, if you go by what Doooovid says, he's probably just treated like a bit of a weirdo, like, because Doooovid is treated like a bit of a weirdo by the other Jews. So if he is, probably Luke is.
Well, I think Doovid is asexual, so I guess it's easier for him. But I've seen pictures of him, thinking, well, he actually looks okay. I mean, or if he tidied himself up a bit, and I think maybe it's like, oh, I just want to remember every now and then to be sad that I'm not married. But actually, I'd be too terrified to go on a date, in case she jumps on me and then forces me to marry her after she jumps on me, kind of thing. Because I wouldn't be able to say no, and I wouldn't be able to find an excuse. So I think a lot of men do find the whole idea terrifying. And the only way to not find it terrifying is to be, head over heels in love. And, for white men, I think it's because they've already had so many sex partners that they can't get excited about getting married. And that's the, additional problem about this, a little bit of you is not just a woman who gets, pumped and dumped and, and yeah. So,
Wait, that's not true about Doooovid in the chat. We're not. I don't believe that.
what?
What Conops is saying.
What? Luke's life is a tragic
No,
tale
about
of its...
Doooovid. About Doooovid. The last comment.
Oh,
No.
I can't
we don't
believe
need
it.
to-
No, I think he's asexual. I really think he is. I just don't think he's interested in sex
I mean,
at all.
it's possible. It's possible. Just like exploring all possibilities here. Like, it's possible that he's like one of these Catholic priests, basically, who go into that there's that reason for it, but I doubt it. I guess it's Doovid's autism, basically. Doovid is obviously, has some autistic traits. Like he says, I don't like fun. Although, I'll let everybody know, if you look at the start of my stream with him on SJ Jamus, I got him to laugh. Yay. Which he claims he doesn't do. And I got that by starting the show with...
that song,
Yes, with Hava Nagilia.
Hava Nagila.
Yeah. Everybody, welcome to SJJ's with Doooovid. SJJ Mass with Doooovid. And he started grinning. So
Yeah.
there's a human being behind the cold exterior of the cyborg, that he puts on.
Yes.
There.
We all have our soft centers. And I think it's good that we this thing that you were describing earlier about people responding to each other with a video, and
Yes.
I think we should really get over ourselves and get ourselves a few principles that we're prepared to defend, because if we don't do that, then I'm afraid the enemy will think that we're too weak or indifferent to defend anything, and this will embolden them
Yeah.
even further. Because thinking about why things are so bad, it's that people just can't be bothered to say anything because it's just easier not to. And I'm afraid that is a feminine attitude of being risk averse, and I'm afraid with millennial mother hen, I think it's just all over the place. This let me mollycoddle you.
Yes. The thing that I was trying to get across, and I don't think I did it super well on my stream with Luke, was that if there was anything good about the alt-right, it was that it was an attempt to cut through the bullshit. That it was an attempt to speak plainly about issues that are obfuscated by untruths, that are obfuscated by political correctness, and the things that you're not allowed to express about reality in politics and society. The alt-right cut through that with a sharp knife, and whilst they were egregious, rude, racist, offensive, you can say lots of things about how they went wrong, that they were wrong or whatever, but that if there was a usefulness to it, it was that they did away with all the pretensions that were bogging down the discourse, and they spoke plainly about things. And that was like the value of the alt-right. What Luke has like come full circle to doing now today is the exact opposite of that. It's back to dancing around all the issue and giving all the fucking bullshit sides of everything, to the extent where you can listen to him talk about a topic and come away with no clearer picture than when you started. It's like analysis paralysis again. And so you're like, well, what is the point in talking about this then?
Well, I think it is a kind of personal development, really. I think it's therapeutic to say what you mean, and even be challenged about it, because you might give way if everybody around you disagrees with you, or you might dig your heels in deeper. But I think it is a personal journey about how far you are prepared to stick to your guns on any matter at all.
Yeah.
And I think we should all attempt to speak the truth as we see it. And I think all these sort of dancing around words, it's like, he's already associated with a dissident right. I don't think, he's going to be accepted as a liberal.
It's like, I've just remembered like one part of the interview where like I said to him, I said, for instance, Luke, if Jews are higher IQ than the rest of us, so if they're so smart, why aren't they doing something about the obvious ills of society? And he goes like, well, actually, Episcopalians are just as smart as Jews, on average, have equally high IQs as on average Ashkenazis do. And I'm like, and I was just like so frustrated by that answer, because it's like, but we all know the point that is being made, that on average Ashkenazi Jews are high IQ. If you can't even accept that, you're back to way back, like before we ever entered the alt-right and started talking about any of this, where we even recognise the difference in IQs among groups, and we're just going to start, obfuscating and prevaricating and muddying all the fucking waters again. If you can't even now say, yes, Ashkenazis are like, the highest IQ group here, it's like, no. I'm like, fucking hell, what's the point?
Well, the thing is that I think the whole analysis is wrong. My analysis, I think I remember posting it. It's a question of snobbery, and this I got when I was talking to Paul Vanderclay, who is this Calvinist pastor, and he's kind of wants to be a Jordan Peterson. He's one of the satellites of Jordan Peterson, and talks to people who talk to him, that kind of thing. And what one of his strongest responses to me was like, we don't talk about these things, Claire. We don't talk about these things. And I think this is it. If you're a certain class, Jew or Gentile, we're not going to talk about, the things that, the lower classes, the plebs, will talk about, the Trump supporters. And that, I think, is what is killing them. So I don't think it's a Jew-Gentile thing. It's like, yeah, I can still afford my liberal luxury beliefs. And everyone, who complains, well, they can't because, they don't even belong to, blah, blah, blah. And I think that's it, really. Nothing more
Yeah.
sinister than that, than just refusing to admit it, that they are also affected and they mind.
Yeah, the problem with like my question with like about Jews. So if Jews are so smart, why aren't they?
They're not
Why aren't
that
they?
smart.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It's actually like Luke's hero, Nathan Coffness's position. That's literally his explanation. So Luke is like the Coffness critique debunked the Kevin MacDonald's The Culture of Critique, and so he became a disciple of Nathan Coffness. Well, Nathan Coffness's whole argument is that basically the explanation for like Jewish success is Jewish high IQ, Jewish excellence. Okay, this is the explanation. So when I come along, I'm not versed in 10,000, different arguments about like the JQ. I'm just here to like just ask a simple question. So if Jews are smart, then Luke, why aren't they? Why don't they care about the direction that the country is going in? And it's like you can't even admit that Jews are smart.
Well, I mean, I would have said, well, if there's a decent anti-immigration party for Gentiles to vote for, if there isn't one, why do they expect Jews to have a better
Well, he could
anti-immigration
have made any of
political
these
party?
arguments. Yeah, he could have made any arguments, but what he wanted to get stuck on, his answer wasn't, well, blah 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 blah. Jews do this, Jews do that. It was, well, Episcopalians on average are of equally high IQ as Ashkenazi Jews. So there. I'm like, oh, okay, I get the, we're back to unable to cut through bullshit and have a discussion about things, and that was my whole point. That was the only good thing. That was the only thing that differentiated being part of this scene than being part of regular fucking like lawyer politics, where people talk out the two sides of their mouth all the time.
Well, I mean, I do keep hearing, Jews being dogs for complaining about immigration. I mean, there have been quite a few stories over the years. So they do complain, and because they get frightened too, like, oh, why all these anti-Semitic Muslims in our country? So I don't think that that's anything that
He could have
people.
told me that. I agree. He could have told me that. He could have told me Jews are really invested in immigration, except they get shouted down or whatever. Or we're actually the ones that care. Look at Stephen Miller. He's like a really, anti-immigrant. I was basically just setting the question up for him just to give me the answer. I wasn't going to push it, but instead of, it's just a small example of how Luke's come to this place now where we're not speaking plainly about the issues that we all know about anymore.
Well,
We're trying to muddy them again.
well, it did sound a bit like an anti-Semitic trope. The assumption that Jews are responsible, or that they're
No,
really in a
I wasn't.
position to do anything
No,
about it.
I've very explicitly said that I'm not blaming Jews for the immigration problem. I'm asking why they're not bothered about it. If they're so smart, why don't they care about it? That's
And the answer is
I
that
don't
quite
think
a
there's any.
lot of them do care.
Well, he could have given me that then that's absolutely fine. But I honestly thought it was a word, not an anti-Semitic question, not and in order to like doubly say, obviously I'm being a bit edgy, but I mean, come on, I could have been doing an OV, but
Well, I'm
obviously
sure
there's
he's forgiven you already. Well, you'll know when you try and pop on next Sunday, I guess.
oh
John
no.
Vance was on
No, here's the thing, because like now, because I'm not too autistic, and I know how to read a room, So because Luke has said, like, basically the last thing that he's expressed about it, although he said he thought it was a great interview, he said, but basically the last thing he said, certainly about coming, is that he doesn't think it's in his interest to come on my show. That's the last thing that he's publicly expressed about it. He realised it doesn't serve his interest. So out of like my friendship with Luke, I won't invite him back on. And given that, I will also take it unless he explicitly invites me back on his show. I will also take it that he would rather me not come on his show.
Really? Well, okay. I mean,
Yeah.
for me and Luke, I mean,
I'm not somebody who would put somebody in the awkward position of like forcing myself. I would never turn up to a party that I thought I wasn't welcome at, or anything like that, or ask somebody to come to a party that they didn't feel they were, welcome at, or anything like that. So I'll just wait for Luke to ask me back on the show, and if he doesn't, that's absolutely fine as well.
well, I just thought we were all lepers anyway. It's like, oh, I suffer from leprosy more than you do.
I don't want to make it awkward for him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, John Vance was there, and Colin Liddell went on to discuss you with him, didn't he?
Yes.
I seem to remember.
I think so. Yeah, I saw a bit of that.
He did blog about that. Well done for causing such a reaction.
Yeah.
Oh well. Are you working tomorrow?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I guess I mustn't keep you up too late.
Yeah. Cool. You're not streaming with Vincent very much anymore, are you?
I did stream. I had quite a good stream. I thought 6 hours.
Okay.
Quite a few things came up.
And the other thing is, what is this machine? The machine lies that Mike Malzahn is talking about. That guy has contacted me. The machine lies.
Yeah, I mentioned you to him. For your interviews, whatever.
But what's he about?
Well, he does discuss philosophy, and he does smoke a bong, and
Okay. Oh.
and Doooovid does it. Oh, yeah, and he's Muslim. So I mean,
He's
it
a
was
white
smoking.
guy.
The
He's a white guy and he's Muslim in America.
He looks like a hippie. This Muslim.
He's a
guy.
white stoner hippie Muslim.
He's not white.
Or is he not white? What
He's
is he?
not white, but he's a stoner, and he's got long hair, and he looks like a hippie, and he smokes a bong, and he plays. I don't know. And his titles are so confusing. It's like, I don't even know why you bother with a title. It might as well be, just gibberish. So I know, I guess I never really, but I know some of the discussion is philosophical. But I mean, they're quite long, so it's difficult to.
Wait, what? He looks like a white guy, but he's got a big beard and big long hair and big glasses on. So what is he? If he's not white, is he an Arab?
I think he's from a Pakistani background, or unless I got the wrong end of the stick. But
I mean, it doesn't matter. It's not. It wouldn't stop me from talking to him. I just want to know what I'm getting myself into.
I've never. I mean, I've had a quite sensible discussion with him, and he's interested in philosophy, and Doooovid. I mean, he was quite pleased with the Doooovid introduction, and he does play music and stuff, so, and a bit of religion, and I hope people will go and tell me how they find it, because I don't quite know what to make out of it.
What you're suggesting to me is it's another one of these where people are saying things, but no information is being generated. Is that right? That's the feeling. That's the vibe I'm getting from you. People are talking, but nobody's saying anything.
Well, some of it makes sense, but the thing is, it always starts really late, and when I do listen to it, I very soon fall asleep, or they're
Right.
playing some music, and it's all a bit disjointed, and so I haven't been on the show. I think I might have appeared once. I'm a bit vague about it. Yeah, sorry, but
Okay.
but
All
maybe
right
you'll
then.
you'll make more sense out of it than me.
Maybe. Okay. All right, Claire. It's been fun.
Yes. Take
All right.
care.
Speak to you Friday or at the weekend. Okay.
Alrighty.
All right.
Bye,
Bye for now. Bye.
everyone.
Good night.
Night.